Yamunatira vanachari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Yasodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Gop Premanandi. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. A reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 4th Canto, 12th chapter. Dhruva Maharaj goes back to Godhead, text number 17. Tasyam Vishuddha Karanakshi Vavarvigaya. No. Tasyam Vishuddha Karanakshi Vavarvigaya. Tasyam Vishuddha Karunak Vishivavarvigaya. Badvasanam Jitamarun Manasaritaksha. Badvasanam Jitamarun Manasaritaksha. Stule Dadhara Bhagavat Pratirupa Etat. Stule Dadhara Bhagavat Pratirupa Etad. Dhyayangstad avyavahito vasrijat samadhau. Dhyayangstad avyavahito vyasrijat samadhau. Tasyam Vishuddha Karanakshi Vavarvigaya. Badvasanam Jitamarun Manasaritaksha. Stule Dadhara Bhagavat Pratirupa Etad. Dhyayangstad avyavahito vasrijat samadhau.
Tasyam Vishuddha Karana Shivavarvigaya.
Tasyam Vishuddha Karana Shivavarvigaya.
manasa hritaksha.
Vasanam jitamarun manasa ritaksha.
Stule dadhara bhagavat pratirupa etat. Dhyayam vyavahito vyasrajat samadho.
Vyasrijat samadho.
Tasyam Vishuddha Karana Shiva Varvikaya.
Tasyam Vishuddha Karana Shiva Varvikaya.
Vasanam Jitamurun Manasa Ritaksha.
Vasanam jitamarun manasa ritaksha.
Sture Datara Bhagavat Pratirupa Etat.
Stule dathara bhagavat pratirupa etat.
Dhyayam Stada Vyavahito Vyasvijat Samadho.
Dhyayam stada vyavahito vyasajat samadho. Tasyam vishuddha karanah shiva varvigaya.
Vasanam jitamarun manasa ritaksha. Stule dhatara bhagavat pratirupa etat. Dhyayam sata vyavahito vyasrijat samadho.
Dhyayam stada vyavahito vyasrijat samadho. Ladies.
Tasyam visuddha karana siva varvigaya.
Tasyam vishuddha karanah shiva varvigaya.
Padvasanam jitamarun manasa hritaksha.
Vasanam jitamarun manasa ritaksha.
Stule dadara bhagavat pratirupa etat.
Stule dathara bhagavat pratirupa etat.
Dhyayam stat avyavahito vyasrijat samadho.
Dhyayam stada vyavahito vyasrijat samadho.
Tasyam Vishuddha Karana Shiva Varvikaya.
Tasyam vishuddha karanah shiva varvigaya.
Padvasanam Jitamarun Manasa Ritaksha.
Vasanam jitamarun manasa ritaksha.
Stule Dadara Bhagavat Pratirupa Etat.
Stule dathara bhagavat pratirupa etat.
Dhyayam Stada Vyavahito Vasvijat Samadho.
Dhyayam stada vyavahito vyasrijat samadho.
Tasyam Vishuddha Karana Shiva Varvikaya.
Tasyam vishuddha karanah shiva varvigaya.
Padvasanam Jitamaro Manasa Ritaksha.
Vasanam jitamarun manasa ritaksha.
Stule Dadara Bhagavat Pratirupa Etat.
Stule dathara bhagavat pratirupa etat.
Dhyayam Stada Vyavahito Vyasrijat Samadho.
Dhyayam stada vyavahito vyasrijat samadho. Tasyam. In Badarikashrama. Vishuddha. Purified. Karanaha. His senses. Shiva. Pure. Vaha. Water. Vighaya. Bathing in. Bhadva. Having fixed. Asanam. Sitting position. Jita. Controlled. Marut. Breathing process. Manasa. By the mind. Ahrita. Withdrawn. Akshaha. His senses. Stule. Physical. Dathara. He concentrated. Bhagavat Pratirupe. On the exact form of the Lord. Etat. The mind. Dhyayan. meditating upon, tat, that, avyavahitaho, without stopping, vyasrijat, he entered, samadho, into trance. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivinoda Swami, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. In Badarikashrama, Dhruva Maharaj's senses became completely purified because he bathed regularly in the crystal clear, purified water. He fixed his sitting position and by yogic practice controlled the breathing process and the air of life. In this way, his senses were completely withdrawn. Then he concentrated his mind on the Archa Vigraha form of the Lord, which is the exact replica of the Lord, and thus meditating upon him, entered into complete trance. Purport. Here is a description of the Astanga Yoga system, to which Dhruva Maharaj was already accustomed. Astanga Yoga was never meant to be practiced in a fashionable city. Dhruva Maharaj went to Badarikashram, and in a solitary place, alone, he practiced yoga. He concentrated his mind on the Archa Vigraha, the worshipable deity of the Lord, which exactly represents the Supreme Lord. And thus thinking constantly of that deity, he became absorbed in trance. Worship of the Archa Vigraha is not idol worship. The Archa Vigraha is an incarnation of the Lord in a form appreciable by a devotee. Therefore, devotees engage in the temple in the service of the Lord as Archa Vigraha, a form made of stula, material objects, such as stone, metal, wood, jewels, or paint. All of these are stula, or physical representations. Since the devotees follow the regulative principles of worship, even though the Lord is there in his physical form, he is none different from his original spiritual form. Thus, the devotee gets the benefit of achieving the ultimate goal of life, that is to say, becoming always absorbed in thought of the Lord. This incessant thought of the Lord, as prescribed in the Bhagavad Gita, makes one the topmost yogi. Tasyam vishuddha karanakshivavār vigaya badvasanam jitamarun manasaritakshaha stule dadhara bhagavat pratirupa etat dhyayam stadavyavahito vyasrijat samadho. In Badarikashram, Dhruva Maharaj's senses became completely purified because he bathed regularly in the crystal clear, purified water. He fixed his sitting position and his yogic practice controlled the breathing process and the air of life. In this way, his senses were completely withdrawn. Then he concentrated his mind on the Archa Vigraha form of the Lord, which is the exact replica of the Lord, and thus meditating upon him entered into complete trance. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Giranjana Shalakaya Chakshuran Militam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sri Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langayate girim yat kripadamaham vande Sri Gurudinataranam Paramananda Maravam Sri Chaitanyeshwaram Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripasindubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna. So actually, Nishinga Kavacha Prabhu is supposed to speak on this verse today because this is his field, his department. Yet, somehow, we have the audacity to comment on the Bhagavatam with the blessings of all the Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis. Dhruva Maharaj had gone to the forest very early on in his life. He was only 5 years old. He was very upset, and by the good advice of his stepmother and his mother, stepmother also told him, no one can help you, just, the Lord. So, and his mother told him where to find that Lord in the forest. So off he went to the forest. And he would regulate his breathing. He controlled his eating. He controlled all his bodily movements to the point where he stopped breathing and he just subsisted on his meditation by chanting the mantra. He was standing on one leg and he had his hands extended above his head, which is called Virasana? Huh? Vrikasana? Vrikshasana. That's what he was performing, right? Yeah. Not easy position, especially to hold it for a prolonged period of time. And he was chanting his mantra that had been given to him by his spiritual master, Srila Narada Muni. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. And in very short time, the Lord appeared. First, he appeared in his heart, and then he appeared in front of him. Then he was bewildered because the Lord wasn't in his heart anymore. He opened his eyes and he saw the Lord in front of him. And he had complete darshan, even though he was very young and not yet fully perfected. But the Lord appeared out of his causeless mercy. So, here we hear about this Astanga Yoga system, which is quite technical, and we'll not get into detail. There's Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayam, Pratyahar, Dharana, Dhyana, and Samadhi. In the Gita it says, Shuchau Deshe, you have to be in a holy place. So that already rules out 99.99999% of the people who pretend to be practicing yoga. Because they're not in a holy place. They're in their own home, in a city, in a very populated, very ordinary place. And then comes Yama and Niyama, things to do and things not to do. That rules out the other 0.00001%. And thus, because you have to basically give up material life, material aspirations, and fully focus, fully dedicate on your spiritual practice. And because no one is capable and no one is willing to do that in this age, luckily for us, it's not the process of this age. But the process of this age is, help me out here. Harinam Sankirtan. Yes, Harinam Sankirtan. Yet still we're performing deity worship because this is a wonderful way to worship the Lord, to meditate on the Lord, to get the Lord's mercy, to purify ourselves, to regulate our activities, to offer all our possessions and all our efforts to the Lord. It is a wonderful opportunity. And so Dhruva was engaging in that through the meditative process. He was visualizing the Lord in the heart, and he was meditating on that form by chanting his mantra. He was worshipping the Lord, and the Lord appeared to him. We have personal experience. Remember, we were 15 years old, having come to the temple a few times. The devotees very kindly handed us beads and books and explained to us the practice, the process of Krishna consciousness. So we started worshipping pictures at home, doing morning worship and evening worship. And evening worship consisted of a poster of Shishi Pralay Singadev. You know, remember that poster with the red outfit and the red flowers? It says, Navajada Nishinga Kshetra. You remember that poster? No, it was before your time, but you may have seen the picture. And I was offering incense and lamp, sometimes flour. And I was praying to Lord Nrsingadev, saying that if you get me out of this situation, then I will dedicate my life to you. Because I was still going to school, and it looked like forever, and it looked like terminal, a situation that I can't really extricate myself from. Then I was playing the kirtan of the Namaste Narsingaya, and I heard a knock on the door. And I ignored it because I knew some of my family members are not happy with me performing puja and making noise, what they considered noise, and using a lot of incense, etc. So when I finished my puja, my worship, I came downstairs, and my older sister, she told me that there was a guy who rang on our door, and he wanted to sell me some books. And I said, we already have one crazy guy upstairs. We don't need more people like that. And I sent him away. And I said, what have you done? Why? So I went looking for that Sankirtan devotee. I went down on the street, went on the street, walked in both directions. Finally, I found him. And he was having a real tough time because it's a very conservative neighborhood. And he was going toward the door. And all he faced was rejection or nobody was home. And he was very sad. He was very depressed. And I was very excited. I was very enthusiastic because I just met a Sankirtan devotee. And I just realized a stark contrast between his countenance and my countenance. Yet I was very happy to see him, and I tried to cheer him up and appreciate him, say something nice. His name was Nrsingadev Das. And so the Lord appears in different ways. He can appear, as we hear here, in stone, in wood, in metal, in jewels. He can also be drawn in sand. Different types of forms the Lord can take. So the Lord is not limited. Advaitam Achutam, Anadim, Anantarupam. He has unlimited forms. And some of them are inconceivable to us. Sometimes the Lord appears in our mind. He just manifests. And He chooses to communicate in that way with the devotee. So the Lord is not limited in the way that He exchanges love with His devotee. Sometimes we are stereotyped. We can only relate with people and with things in a certain particular way. And that limits our ability to engage and to reciprocate. That's why our ability to deal with people is limited. Have you noticed how limited we are? You look at someone and you can't look at others. And then some people feel neglected, some people feel like, oh. I remember one time I was in Bila Vrindavan. I hadn't seen my guru for quite a long time. And I was serving him. I was arranging things in his room. And he did not greet me. He did not look at me. He did not say anything to me. And I got a little annoyed. My mind got upset. You know how it is when your mind gets upset? Does your mind ever get upset? Huh? And I thought, what is this? You know, I'm serving. I'm a disciple. I'm trying to do my best here. I'm being a good boy. And I have some, spiritual and emotional needs also for validation. But none of that came. And my mind got a little agitated. But then after a while I realized something, and I became exceedingly happy. Because I realized that now finally He has accepted me as His servant. Because you don't have to entertain a servant. If you have a guest, if some new person comes, we say, hello. Where you from? What's your name? What can I do for you? And all these things, because that's how you treat a guest, right? A visitor. But if you're dealing with a servant or a person who is very intimate with you, that's not required. Just like you have a new couple, there's a lot of talking and a lot of, exchange and physical closeness. But if a couple has been together over years, over decades, there is no need for all the talking and for all the, physical proximity. Why? Because the connection is very strong and it's very tight. Why? Because they're on the same page. They're connected through service. They have the same mission. So At that moment, I realized that now I've been accepted as an intimate servant, as a confidant, as a part of the inner circle, not somebody who needs to be entertained, who needs to be pleased and taken care of. But there's a price to pay for that. There's a price to pay for that. So here we can see how Dhruva is going to Badarikashram to be in a solitary place, a holy place, to perform his practice. Now, in this age of Kali, that is not recommended. Prahlad Maharaj says, Naivod vijay paraduratre vaitaranyas tadvirya gayana mahamrita magna chitta shocheta tomyukacheta sa indriyartam maya sukhayam baramudvahato vimudhan. He says, don't go to the mountains, to the Himalayas, to the caves, or to the remote places. But go where? Go to Linz. Go to Munich. Go to Passau. Go to New York. Go to Moscow. Go to the busy places, the most populated places, to spread the message of the Lord. Because going to remote places and imagining in your mind that I'm a yogi, I'm a meditator, I'm very advanced. Arjuna tried to do the same, right? He said, I want to be a nice guy. Let me go to the forest and be a yogi. And what about all this fighting business and killing people? I don't like it, Besides, if I kill everybody, who is there to celebrate with me? And it's not very enjoyable if all your friends and family members are dead. And Arjuna had this great idea of being a good guy, of being a nice guy. And Krishna told him, no, it's not the right decision. And especially for you, because you're a Kshatriya, you have to do your duty, you have to fight your fight. So in a similar way, Prahlad Maharaj is telling us that this is not the way how to attain the mercy of the Lord. So, because we have a linear mind, and we try to see polarities, sometimes people say, okay, that means now we only do Sankirtan. No more deity worship. No, that's not what it means. It means that we have to have an understanding of proper priorities. That Sankirtan Yagya is the Yuga Dharma, but at the same time, we also do deity worship, we also do meditation, we do all the other processes also, but in conjunction and together with Sankirtan. Together. Prabhupada mentioned that when they installed Krishna Balaram, that he had to call for Smarta Brahmins to chant elaborate mantras and procedures, which were costly, in order to give confidence to the Brijbasis that this temple was bona fide, that this is authorized. This is not just some, Western kind of new invention type of a thing, but that this is traditional, that we're following the proper rituals. But he said, I considered that the Harinam Sankirtan, which was going on continuously in the temple during the installation ceremony and all throughout the festival, he said, I considered that to be the real installation and more important than all the other ceremonies. Similar way with initiation. Srila Prabhupada met his spiritual master and accepted him at the first meeting in Ultadanga Junction on that rooftop. But he took Diksha, he took initiation 11 years later. 11 years later. So, sometimes we get caught up in the externals and we take details to be principles and principles to be details. And then we get into trouble. This can happen. So here we have Dhruva Maharaj showing to us how to focus on the Lord, how to worship the Lord. Now, he did not really have a deity, a physical deity. He was worshiping the Lord in his heart, which is perfectly permissible. But it's a high level of worship. Have you ever tried to do Manasa Puja? Have you ever watched your mind and saw where your mind goes while you're doing Manasa Puja? It's not easy. It's a high level of worship. So, and we have this opportunity to get this type of focus, to get this type of gravity as Dhruva. by following the process that Srila Prabhupada has given us. Dhruva Maharaj's gravity became so big, he was standing on one leg, that the entire universe was suffocating. The demigods were going to Brahma and everyone was freaking out because things were not working properly. And they realized, yeah, it's little Dhruva, 5-year-old boy, standing in Madhuvan on one leg, chanting his mantra, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, Tadvigyanam sagurumeva vigachet samitpani shrotriyam brahmanishtam. What does samitpani mean?
Collecting firewood and water.
Yes, collecting the ingredients for worship, firewood for the yajna, water, other ingredients. Now, how can we follow this Vedic injunction? If you're somewhere in a city, we can carry the books of our spiritual master. What are books made of? Paper. What is paper made of? Wood. Yes. So you can still follow Samitpani Shrotriyam Brahmanishtam when you take the teachings of the Guru Parampara and you deliver it to everybody. In this way, you're engaging in Yajan Yajan, Patan Patan, Dana Pratigraha, which means that you engage in deity worship, Jai, Sisipala Ishingdev Ki Jai. You engage others in the worship of the deity. You study and you teach and you accept charity and you give charity to others. So these are the activities of the Brahmins, and we are following in this line. Even though we may not be of the Varna, we may not be of the external activities of a Brahmin, but because we're engaging in devotional service, we will acquire the benefit from these practices, and we become purified by engaging personally in the Lord's intimate service. Srila Prabhupada said, I'm always absorbed in the mood of Prahlad Maharaj. What is that mood? Naivod Vijay? No. That one? Naivod Vijay Parudrat? No. That's the one we chanted before, right? What's the other verse? Help me out here. I'm a little low on RAM at the moment. Naivod Vijay Paraduraptiravaitaraniyas Tadviragayana Mahamrita Magna Chitta Shocheta Tomukcheta Saindriyarta Maya Sukham. Nope. Prayena Deva Munayaksvai Mukti Kama Maunam Charanti Vijanena Parartanishta. Yeah, those two. So the other one we already chanted before. So Naivod Vijay Paraduratya Vaitaranyas Tadvirya Gayana Mahamrita Magna Chitta Shocheta Tomukcheta Saindriyarta Maya Sukhayam Barumudva Tobi Mutan. What is the mood of Prahlad Maharaj? He's always making plans how to benefit the fools and rascals that are engaged in Maya Sukha, in this illusory, this temporary enjoyment of the material world. So that is Prahlad's mood, how to bring living entities closer to Krishna. He would gather his classmates in recess when there was school break, when there was no class going on from Sandhana Marka, and he would get up on a table and he would preach to them about Krishna consciousness. Kaumaramacharet pragyo dharman bhagavataniha durlabha manushya janma tadapi adruvam artadam. That from this early age of 5 years you should take on Krishna consciousness. Sometimes people say, spiritual life, yeah, chanting, yeah. That's for old people, right? That's what grandma does, right? But you're young, you're supposed to make money and enjoy life, right? Don't people say that sometimes? Why are you doing this? You're a young person. You should be out there chasing stuff. But what does old mean? Old means about to die. So who can say that they're not old? Anybody can say that they're not old? There is no guarantee on how long we're going to be living. So here, Dhruva Maharaj is in trance. He's in complete union with the Lord. Not that he becomes one with the Lord in person, but he becomes one in interest. He becomes one in quality. And that is that oneness that we should aspire for. Now, as His Holiness Krishna Kshetra Maharaj was pointing out, that's where a lot of the Brahmavadis tend to verge off into Mayavad, that when they experience that union, that oneness of purpose, that at some point their mind tricks them and says, you are that supreme. That's you. You are God. And that's the ultimate drug, the ultimate buzz. And yesterday we went to Linz in Austria, and we could see how people are conditioned a little bit more by the mode of goodness. What is the conditioning of the mode of goodness according to Bhagavad Gita? And why is good not good enough? Yes?
They're conditioned by good feelings or by happiness. No?
Happiness, yes. I'm happy. Look at me. I have a nice body, I have nice clothes, I have nice food, I live in a nice city, everything works here. This is Austria. Huh?
And also knowledge.
And people are pious and they follow rules. And also knowledge, yes. I know, I'm educated, I know better. And that's a conditioning. They're conditioned, they're captured by that. So, and why is good not good enough? Why is that a trap?
Because it's temporary.
Yes, well, so is everything else in this world. So how is this worse than anything else?
We are satisfied and we don't progress much.
I think I'm good.
Yeah, we will not make further progress.
Yes, because as soon as you think I'm done, you are done. Have you ever written an exam and you thought, I'm done? That moment, you're done. For you, it's over. That's it. You're done. You don't recognize that you made a whole bunch of mistakes, you oversaw a few things, you misunderstood a few questions, because that moment your mind convinced you that you were done. You were done. So the moment that your mind convinces you that I've achieved, there is a life after initiation in Krishna consciousness. Sometimes we think initiation is the goal, like that's what I have to achieve. I have to get that name. Or people think, I have to get that position, or I have to get married, or I have to go to some place, and then I'm there. No. That's the beginning. To initiate means to begin the journey. So when you get initiation, it means welcome. You're being admitted. You've been admitted to the school. Of course, you've done your homework, you've done your preliminaries, you've done your preparation work to get to that beginning. And that's very wonderful, that's honorable. But if we think that I now achieved a certain level and that's it, no. There is always higher levels to go to. Now, of course, as we heard yesterday, that a little bit of advancement is for our eternal benefit, and it will help us alleviate most of the trouble and sufferings of this world. Even if you yuktahara viharasya, yukta swapnasa chetasu, yukta swapnavabodasya, yogo bhavati dukkha. If you just become regulated through the practices of bhakti, and you just follow 4 regulative principles, you can avoid most of the sufferings. Yoga bhavati dukkha. Most of the sufferings of this world you can avoid. Of course, there's still adibhautik, adidaivik, and adhyatmika klesha, the suffering from body and mind, but they will be less because you're more regulated. You're more in a mode of goodness. Then, of course, there's still other living entities. Have you noticed all the mosquitoes here? Huh? Not as many as Mayapur or as Vrindavan or as the Caribbean or as any of those, hot places. But still, there are a few. Then there are living entities who may not be agreeable, who may not do what you want them to do. That can happen. Have you noticed? Sometimes you pay obeisances and somebody does the same thing right in front of you and kicks you in the head with their feet. Then what's your reaction? Okay, I'm going to be a tolerant Vaishnava, but karma is going to get him. Or let's smack him on the head. or how terrible. Huh? No, we should think, oh, I've been blessed. I got mercy. When Lord Chaitanya was dancing during the Rath Yatra, King Prataparudra was watching him, but in front there was always Srivas Thakur. And so the assistant of Prataparudra Maharaj, he tapped Srivas Thakur on the shoulder and tried to get him out of the way so the king could have good darshan. And after, he didn't know why somebody tapped him on the shoulder and was trying to move him. So at some point he just turned around and he slapped him in the face. And he went back to having full darshan of the Lord. And what was the name of the person? The assistant of the king? Was it Kashishwar? Kashi Mishra, because Kashishwar is Lord Chaitanya's assistant. So could have been Kashi Mishra, the voice from the altar. So, and he wanted to retaliate, and King Prataparudra said, you are very fortunate. You've been blessed by the touch of Srivas Thakur. But you got the mercy. You're more fortunate than I am. Huh? But don't do anything. Just accept it. Huh? So sometimes things happen to us and we don't understand it because we don't see the context. We don't see the bigger picture. We can't really understand or appreciate Krishna's plan. When we do workshops, we tell people always, imagine, and we're not going to do it here, I'm just going to tell you about it. Imagine the 3 worst things that ever happened in your life, not like in depth or in detail because we don't want to put you into misery, but just categorically, like bullet points. And then fast forward a few years or maybe a decade and look back. And usually we'll have the honest assessment that this is the best thing that could happen to me. This is what had to happen to me so that I could actually advance, so that I could actually come closer to Krishna. If you like, you can do that little exercise, and see how it works. Just to see. We need context. And part of context is time, place, circumstance, mercy, and also the viewpoint, the wisdom of the sages, the vision of the sadhus. Because I can't really figure out what's going on at this moment, because I'm very limited in my ability to perceive things. Yet, when we engage in the service of the Lord, and we enter into union with the Lord through pure devotional service, which means ahaitukya pratiyata, anyabilashita shunyam jnana karmadyanavita manukulyena krishna nushilana bhakti ruttama. No contamination by karma or gyan. Now we may say, well, I'm not a karmi, right? I'm a bhakti yogi. Well, let's see. Have you ever thought, if I had just a little bit more money, I could do so much more for Krishna? Have you ever thought like that? Anybody? No, never, right? You're all pure devotees. Okay, 3 people said yes. All the others, that's not your problem. Okay, good. Hey, it's a good class. It's a good class. I'm impressed. Have you ever thought, if I would just be a little smarter and I could actually memorize some of these verses and stories and names? I learned more verses when I was still going to school, and I was studying verses under my desk. While the teacher was doing his thing up there, I was just learning verses. I learned more verses. I forgot more verses later on than I studied in school before joining the movement. So anyhow, have you ever thought if I'd be a little smarter, I could actually be a great preacher? I could actually, impress some people? I mean, I have godbrothers, they can memorize entire books. Not just verses, but entire pastimes by heart. In Sanskrit, Bengali, Hindi, and whatever else. But that is beyond my capacity. And it should be anushilanam. It should be pleasing. Yes, it should be pleasing. It should be actually pleasing to Krishna. It shouldn't just be what I imagine how things should be. Sometimes we have our preconceived notion and we think, yes, this is what it is, and that's that. Harikesh Prabhu was mentioning how the first time he visited Minsk, Belarus, former Soviet Union, just next to the Baltics, northwest. So he visited Minsk for the first time, and the devotees welcomed him, and he gave a talk, and then the devotees had prasad, but he didn't get any prasad, and he went to sleep. And the next morning, he did morning program, he gave lecture, and then the devotees had breakfast, but he didn't get anything. And then there was lunch, and they didn't bring him lunch. So then he asked one devotee, prasadam? Any prasadam? And the devotee was, but you're a pure devotee. You're a pure devotee. I thought pure devotees don't eat. So they knew as much as they could know from what they read and from what they imagined. But they didn't really know the full picture. So we need context. And for that, we need to study Prabhupada's books thoroughly. So we get proper context. Then we have to study Prabhupada's books in the association of the Vaishnavas. Then we get more context because you get their realizations, you get their input, how they apply it in their lives, how they have realized. Have you noticed if you have a study group with others, you get a lot more context? One person said yes. Thank you. Have you ever studied with someone?
Yeah.
You ever had a study partner or somebody you shared your mind and you discussed Shastra with? And that person had completely different insights on the same topic, on the same verse, on the same pastime. It's pretty amazing, right? All of a sudden it's like, wow, I never thought of it like that. Hey, yeah, okay. You could see it like this, you could see it like that. That's amazing. Like we have all the commentaries of the Acharyas, and Prabhupada, he collected the essence and he put that with his own realizations into his Bhaktivedanta purports. Who here likes honey? Maduram, maduram, maduradipate, maduram, maduram. Why do you like honey? And don't say because it's sweet. Because
It's pure. Pure sweetness.
tasty, pure, sweet,
It's natural.
natural.
Pure.
What else?
Nourishing.
What is honey made of?
Wow.
Honey is the quintessence of the flavor of all these flowers and trees. That's what it is. It is the extracted essence. Srimad Bhagavatam Puranam Amalam Yad Vaishnavanam Priyam. So that's why the Srimad Bhagavatam is so dear to the heart of the Vaishnavas, because it is the distilled essence of all the Vedic literatures. Shukamukhat dravya samyutam pibata bhagavatam rasamalayam muhur muho bhuvi bhavuka. And because it has been tasted by the previous acharyas like Shukadev, like Sutta Goswami, like all the others who are coming down in this great line, sometimes we think, oh, we're unfortunate. Oh, I miss Prabhupada. Oh, I missed Bhaktisiddhanta. Oh, I missed Bhaktivinoda. I missed all these people. But actually, that's the wrong way how to look at it. The right way how to look at it is, the further removed you are in the parampara, the more honey, the more nectar, the more essence you get. You get the experience of all these devotees. Different context, different perception, right? So, here, Dhruva is having his pastime of fully focusing on the Lord and preparing himself to leave the world, which meant no more emails, no more phone calls, no more social media, no more going to office, no more tending to business. One business only. Tadekena manasa. Only bhakti. And that is the goal. And we're preparing for that. And because Dhruva had experienced this level of intensity, he had experienced this kind of practice when he was younger, earlier on in his initial life, it was natural and it was easy for him to take that practice up again. We also hear from Dhritarashtra, who did not have this practice and this exposure. But somehow, by the mercy of Vidura, his older brother, he could get extricated from his palace life and his illusion. And he also went to Badrikashram, and he became liberated from his material attachments. He could not become a Narottama, he could not become a topmost elevated person. Why? Because he was inimical to the Vaishnavas. He was inimical to the Pandavas. So these are very important lessons. If I still harbor enmity, if I still harbor resentment toward devotees, I can't become a topmost Vaishnava. It's not possible. Because there's something that's holding me back in my heart. You can become liberated, but what's liberation? You know, in comparison to Krishna Prema. You get the idea? So, if you want to achieve the highest goal, we got to be willing to pay that price. So this process is very joyfully performed. We saw yesterday in Linz, people were mesmerized seeing the kirtan. Distributing books with Harinam is pure sense gratification. It's too nice. Too much nice. Huh? You have all these people who stand there and who smile and who tap and who clap and they're like, hey, this is nice. And they're just like ripe fruits waiting to fall from the tree, you know. All you have to go there and say, hi, do you know what this is? And they say, no, but are you going to tell me? Do you have something for me? Yeah, I'll give you some money. Huh? So, and we can also see, dhira dhira janak priyak priyakaro. There were some people who were very compromised by the modes. Do you remember that, especially that younger man who was picking up kartals and the gong and, you know, touching the deity, doing all kinds of stuff? Remember him?
Yeah.
I sold him a book before, but he's very, very compromised by intoxication. So later on he came back and he was very angry, he was very upset, he was in a very aggressive mood. But the kirtan and the devotees calmed him down and he actually mellowed out. And then Rupa Vilas was telling me, I didn't see it, but he picked up the gong and he took the stick and he beat himself over the head and he did all kinds of things. And then later on he was like, oh, what's going on here? You know. And then luckily his acquaintance, one lady, she also came and she kind of calmed him down more and then they went off together. But the point is that whether people are educated, whether they're virtuous or they are compromised, they will benefit from the Sankirtan movement. And we don't care if people are compromised by the mode of goodness, passion or ignorance. We just want to help people to advance. Any questions? Yes.
When we take to Krishna consciousness, mostly we were not purely in the mode of goodness. So when that may increase through our practice.
What may increase?
The mode of goodness. Or
okay.
let me put it more practical, like there is less hankering, there is a sense of I don't have to work so hard in this world for anything actually. And we may come to that point where like, yeah, what am I living for? I'm just, or maybe not like that, but like there's nothing to do actually. And what element of our practice is needed so that we have a very deep sense that yes, I'll do Krishna Bhakti, I'll continue devotional service.
Yes, there has to be a sense of urgency. Anartha kalatvam, I don't want to waste any time. And that prerequisites that we don't think I've already achieved. Because if you think you're there, then you're there. And that's it. You've plateaued. But you have to understand that there's no such thing as steadiness. It's either you go up or you go down. There's two ways to go, up or down. Now if you try to improve, at some point it becomes difficult and you actually become steady. It's not that you stop endeavoring. you continue endeavoring, but it looks like you just become steady. As soon as you stop endeavoring, you're going down. You may not notice it, but you're going down. So that's why Prabhupada told the leaders that they should always be conscious to create a fresh challenge. That's why in a temple you have so many festivals, and you have guests, and you have a mission. There's this, you have like here, you got agriculture, you got families, you got community building, you got outreach. There's a whole range of departments where you have to endeavor. As soon as I think, well, I got a place to sleep and some food and, life is good, then someone's duty should be to remind us that, my dear friend, I think you can do a little better than that. And I think everybody will agree. Now, of course, there should be realistic goals, and we should be kindly encouraged to grow, but it is a requirement. Otherwise, you may end up being 35 or 40 years old, and you still live at home because mom is feeding you. Yeah, real scenario. Huh? Or you may be living in a temple and you're 50 years old and you should be married, you should have your own setup and your own thing, but you just never got to it. But you're not really a fully dedicated, preacher or brahmachari type of person. So there has to be some counseling so that people can actually evolve, they can actually progress. And that's the role of the seniors. That's why we need seniors, that's why we need elders. We need sages, and we need grandmas, and people who have been through life, who can encourage us in the right way. Okay?
May I offer a small correction?
Yes, please.
Okay, so you mentioned that Dhruva Maharaj was worshipping a mental form of the Lord. In this verse, the word is stule, which means physical. Also, if you look in chapter 8, verses 54, 55 and 56, Narad Muni instructs him to worship the physical form, and he actually tells him to make a form out of earth and water. So he's worshipping a physical form.
Okay.
And he's offering berries and leaves and
Thank
things
you.
from the forest.
Thank you. Thank you. But then the Lord still appeared in his heart and in his mind.
Prior to that.
Yeah. Prior to that. So he was...
Narad Muni was describing the form of the Lord, his whole feature.
Yeah.
This is meditate like that. And then the Lord appeared to him in his mind, and then, as you mentioned, he disappeared from his mind, and then he was in front of him. Yeah.
Physical form.
Yeah.
Thank you. You see, it's good to have sages. Anyone else? All right, thank you for your patience and participation. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Shri Prahlad Lakshmi Nrsimhadev Bhagavana ki jai, Jai Gaur Premanandi.
Navina Nirada Prabhu ki jai. I can leave. నేను వచ్చాను మీరు చాలా డీప్ స్లీప్లో ఉన్నారు ఎందుకు లేహాసి వచ్చేసాను వెనక్కి
thing is, people will follow you.
Yeah.
And they will imitate you.
I think
The good, the bad, and the ugly. So then it's like, well, am I leader?
no, but
Do I want people to follow me? So, but it goes in stages. Like you can see how you can teach new people, you can teach people who know less, or you can work with your peers. So just develop your skills, your proficiency in different areas. And then naturally, initially it was easier because there was not so many people around. But you know, if you were in the movement for a few years, you were like senior. People became guru sannyasis and GBCs after 3 or 5 or 7 years, which is kind of scary. So you have the luxury of just sitting back and seeing what works, what doesn't work, how can we do things better. But sometimes it's also a little annoying because you see the same mistakes, the same patterns.
No, it's actually sometimes like as youth, you don't really get much responsibility actually, like because the
Yeah, because people
seniors
think that you can be trusted and you're
and
not
also
capable.
because the seniors kind of made the
So you want
hardest
something
steps, and now
Yeah.
that we had it easy, so
Yeah.
relaxed, we don't really know what to do.
But that will be there for the
Because
whole
it
life.
feels like the mission is over.
Like I said yesterday in class, when I went to San Francisco to
Shall we do it now?
I'm sure they tell me I'm too young. So you're never in the right age group. So get used to that idea. So that means just have to focus on what is it that I can do and what is it that I want to do for Krishna. And just get busy with the stuff that you feel is what you should be doing. Rather than thinking, oh no, I need to go to meetings involving me. Because, you know, it comes when it comes. Sometimes it's scary stuff. Like I was 20 in 1991. I applied to work at 23. Yeah, so I was 23 years old. I got a call from my uncle. I had to come to my employer. They elected me to be the director of marketing, which is like the minister of business. So I was sitting with all these old men.
Yeah, there's the
And observing what they were talking about, asking myself how is this related to me. But somehow they put me in that position for 10 years. I served in that capacity. It was a rough learning curve. I had to really excel because I was put in a position above my capacity. I asked my guru, so what's my job description? And he said, there is no job description. We don't have job descriptions. But you don't worry, you're already doing it. So just continue doing what you're doing. And if anything gives you trouble, send it to me.
where would you be sitting? Here.
I think,
Usual festival.
and I still
Yeah, because then
especially like, you know,
show
the bureaucracy and meetings and different ballgame than working in the field. And so you have to see what is it that I like to do, what is it where I'm good at. Okay, I can do a few other things also, but you know, to know one's weakness is your strength. Like I'm an impatient person. I don't have the patience to sit through meetings. I don't have the patience with bureaucracy, people smiling and lying through their teeth and talking.
And then how did Ika
So you have to figure out what
to
works
connect it with your
and then
laptop?
be happy to do what you do. And so, yeah, right now you're in a very advantageous position because you're not in a situation where you have to perform and do big things. So you can just say, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to do
So
that.
it's kind of like
choose.
you start like observing like without having to
want to sit on the other side?
disqualified and I need to improve myself. But like start like
It would not.
no, but like from the back,
That can be-
observing how
that can be
things are
crushing.
done.
And then we need HDMI. And your laptop needs to be connected to the internet, so it shows some
Why would you want to do that?
YouTube videos and
Like for me,
YouTube.
trying to participate
Let's
and have good sadhana.
open.
And then going out and sharing books, that's more like play group, you know? Like preschool, like this guy. get some growing up to do, and that doesn't stop, you know. Like, I'm 55, and it's still going on. Yeah, I'm doing what I can do during the day, but you know, whenever responsibility comes, in other words, Krishna, he empowers us according to our capacity. He can give you much more. He can give us everything, but are we capable of handling it? Probably not. Just like, why does Krishna give us forgetfulness? So we don't have to remember all the stupid stuff that we did in this life and in previous life. So Krishna is kind. He just gives us as much, also as much opportunity, as much resources, as much challenges. Because Krishna is very personal. It's like with a kid, you know, as you grow up. Communicate. Right now it's supposed to be about doing what you can see. But then as your experience grows, you learn how to work in teams. You start working with friends. You see stuff is bigger.
Die längere.
And then you really get more traction. But there are different types of leaders, you know. Some people are
Dat is wat jetzt auch schon zwei Jahre bei den Gelangten ein bisschen länger ist. Das heißt, sie ist auch schon normalerweise geht die immer so. Und dann sieht man das nicht so gut. Auf die Fehler gelandet ist noch nicht.
There's different types of leaders.
Sonst nicht so.
It's not a stereotype thing. Okay, leader means big office. You know, a big car, a lot of people. No, you can be a mom. That's, you know, very important. You can just be a teacher or whatever you're. Leaders required in the leader means example. And as far as the elderly or the older people not recognizing, not empowering, not work with the people where you feel inspired. Work with the people where you feel you're getting something. And the others just, you know, smile and hardball. It's not like you have to break your head, that you have to deal with people who are difficult. Or you find yourself in such a situation that you're keeping your endurance.
Maybe not in that sense, but more in.
Why is it blurry?
It's like a broader.
It's because there's a demon.
The older generation in general don't want to.
Yeah, but that's there since Adam and Eve. That's since the beginning of the creation.
He likes to wait.
No, you don't have to wait.
Also that smaller one.
You have to get busy doing stuff.
Yeah.
Like you can see, you saw something this Sunday fun.
No.
He didn't wait, he got busy. Yeah, he's a happening guy, you know? And it's not like he's got it all figured out and he has an answer for all the questions, but he's busy for Krishna. So Krishna gives him opportunity because he likes to be busy. Then there's people who say, this bad, this all bad. And not much happens because we already know what's bad. But that doesn't solve the problem.
And then YouTube.
Because people are people. That means attached, insecure, territorial. You know, who are you? What are you doing here? Why did you come here? Blah blah blah. You know, all that kind of stuff. But that's why it's important that we have a mission in life. And if that mission is somehow connected to the
Do we have a second bow speaker?
then
Do we have a
it will
second bow
sustain
speaker?
Krishna will empower.
No.
But often we sign up for other missions, you know, like, and we go on a jihad. You know, the jihad is holy war. Holy war. Like the Muslims are these, you know, they're like, yeah, we gotta kill everybody who doesn't believe what I believe. So don't go on this kind of mission. Make sure that the mission, the cause that you sign up to, has got something to do with this. Because, you know, like right now you're very much concerned about youth, but in a few years, people will consider you old, and they'll consider you a part of the